In a galaxy ruled by intellect, politics, and power, compassion had become a forgotten art. Until one ordinary human, a quiet hairdresser from Earth, did something no one else could. He didn't wield weapons or command fleets. He held scissors, and with them, he uncovered a truth that would shake the stars themselves. This is the story of the alien diplomat's daughter who suffered daily, until a human hairdresser removed something shocking. A story about pain, healing, and the stubborn, beautiful heart of humanity. The Galactic Council's embassy on Earth never truly slept. Even at 3 in the morning, it pulsed with the quiet heartbeat of 1,000 civilizations. Translator drones whispered in every dialect imaginable. Security constructs rolled down endless corridors. Somewhere, someone from the Vortha delegation was photocopying their tentacles again. It smelled of ozone, synthetic pollen, and coffee strong enough to dissolve steel. In the middle of it all, inside a tiny glass-front salon between a Valari textile shop and a Polarax cuisine stall, a human named Wayne cleaned his scissors. He wasn't supposed to be here. No human was. Earth was the Council's newest member, young and volatile, still learning how to stand among giants. Most species looked at humans the way one might look at a child juggling plasma cutters, curious, impressed, and a little horrified. But Wayne didn't care. He had carved out a space for himself and learned to make alien biology his canvas. Feathers, fur, fractal scales, living bioluminescent tendrils, he could make them shine. He didn't just cut hair. He restored dignity. He restored self. And that's when she walked in. A young Valenian, barely 17 in human years. Skin like liquid turquoise, eyes like amber suns. Her luminous tendrils, those flowing ribbons that marked every heartbeat of her kind, hung dim and lifeless. Her name was Diana, daughter of Ambassador Krelvoth, one of the most powerful diplomats in the galaxy. And she looked broken. "Mr. Wayne, please," she said, her voice soft and trembling. "I need help." Her voice barely rose above a whisper, but Wayne heard something beneath it, the raw edge of pain that no medicine could hide. She sat down in the chair. Every movement cost her something. "I've had headaches for 2 years," she said. "Every day? Our physicians tried everything, neural scans, resonance therapy, even emotional recalibration. They say it's in my mind, that I'm not adapting to Earth." Wayne looked at her the way only someone who's seen too much suffering can look. Not as a customer, not as an alien, but as a patient. Because before the salon, before the scissors and the laughter, Wayne had been a medic, a soldier's medic. He had seen pain that machines couldn't fix. He didn't ask for her title. He didn't care that she was the daughter of a galactic legend. He simply said, "May I?" She nodded. The old instincts returned. Hands steady, eyes sharp, heart slow. He touched her tendrils, tracing the faint bioluminescent flow down to the roots. Cool. Weak. Something was wrong. He adjusted his magnification visor and leaned closer. Then he felt it. A tiny ridge, barely there, but unmistakable. "Diana," he murmured, "when was your last visit to a Valenian groomer?" "Before we came to Earth," she replied. "We thought it would be temporary." It wasn't. Under the magnifier, the truth came into focus, a thin, translucent ring of fused tissue, choking the base of her main tendril. A growth ring, something that should have shed naturally with age. But this one hadn't. It had tightened slowly, painfully. Every heartbeat added another millimeter of pressure. 2 years of agony, and no one had seen it. He knew what he had to do, and he knew how dangerous it was. The Valenian nervous system was a river of living light. One wrong move, and she could lose more than just pain. He reached for the fine surgical scissors, his old field kit reborn as a stylist's tools. "You'll feel something strange," he said. "Tell me if it hurts." His hands moved in silence. Sweat trickled down his temple. Minutes passed, long, heavy, endless minutes, until a soft snap echoed through the quiet room. The ring came free, and in that instant, the room erupted in color. Diana gasped. Her tendrils exploded into light, waves of turquoise, violet, and gold cascading through the air like auroras. She reached up, trembling. "It's gone," she whispered. "The pain, it's gone." Wayne held up the small ring, barely visible, glimmering like crystal. So harmless in appearance, so monstrous in effect. "Your doctors search for the complex answer," Wayne said. "Sometimes the simplest thing is what kills us." 2 years, Diana said, tears spilling down her face. And a human hairdresser fixes it in 20 minutes. Sometimes it's not about the tools, Wayne said softly. It's about the way we look at the problem. For the first time, she moved freely. Light danced across the mirror as she laughed, bright and unburdened. And when she left, she carried with her something far greater than relief. She carried proof. Proof that maybe, just maybe, humanity's place among the stars wasn't about strength or knowledge, but about care. Wayne didn't see species. He saw pain, and he refused to let it win. As the door closed behind her, the salon fell silent again. The hum of the embassy returned, but something in the air had changed. A single act of compassion, a single human's stubborn refusal to stop looking, had shifted something far larger than either of them could imagine. And somewhere, in the distant chambers of power, a story was beginning to spread about a young alien who suffered for years, and the human hairdresser who looked where no one else dared to. Sometimes healing doesn't come from technology. Sometimes it comes from kindness and a steady hand. The next morning, Wayne arrived at his salon early. The embassy corridors were quieter than usual, but he could feel it, a ripple in the air, like the pause before a storm. Word had spread. He just didn't know how far. He began his morning routine. Tools sterilized, towels folded, mirrors polished. Same rhythm, same peace. But as he reached for the lights, the glass door slid open with a hiss. 3 Valenians stood outside. Attendants, judging by their elegant robes and the way they avoided direct eye contact. Their tendrils glowed softly, pulsing with agitation. "Mr. Wayne," the tallest one said, "the ambassador requests your presence." Wayne blinked. "Ambassador Krelvoth?" The Valenian inclined his head. "Yes." Immediately, Wayne exhaled slowly. "Of course he does." He wiped his hands, set down his scissors, and followed them through the embassy's maze of corridors. The air grew cooler, the ceilings higher, until they reached a chamber lined with crystal panels that shimmered with living light. At the center stood Ambassador Krelvoth. Massive, regal, his scales shimmered in deep imperial blue, each movement sending ripples of reflected starlight across the walls. His gaze was sharp, ancient and heavy with the kind of authority that could start or stop wars with a single word. "Human," the ambassador said, his voice deep and resonant. "You treated my daughter." Wayne kept his tone level. "Yes, sir. She came to me for help. She was in pain," Krelvoth said. "For years. Our best physicians failed her. And you, an untrained human, removed it in minutes." "I wouldn't say untrained," Wayne replied evenly. "Just trained differently." The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "Do you know what it means for a Valenian parent to fail their child? What it means for me, as a representative of my people, to have overlooked her suffering?" Wayne met his gaze without flinching. "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came here to help whoever walks through my door." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The attendants shifted nervously. Then, slowly, Krelvoth stepped closer. His presence was immense, like standing at the base of a mountain that was quietly judging you. "Our healers said she imagined her pain," Krelvoth said softly. "That she was weak. Emotional. Pain isn't weakness," Wayne said. "It's information. If we stop listening, we stop healing." The ambassador's eyes flickered, unreadable. Then, for the briefest instant, his tendrils shifted hue, a Valenian gesture somewhere between surprise and respect. "You are impertinent," he said finally. "I'm human," Wayne replied. "We come that way." Krelvoth exhaled, a sound like distant thunder. Perhaps not always a flaw. He reached into his robe and withdrew a small crystal shard, etched with the emblem of the Valenian embassy. "For your service to my family, and by extension, my people. Consider this a token of gratitude." Wayne accepted it carefully. "Thank you, sir." Krelvoth turned away, his voice low but clear. "I once believed humans were too impulsive to stand among the Council's elder races. Too emotional. Too unpredictable. But perhaps it is precisely those qualities that make you valuable." He looked back over his shoulder. "My daughter speaks of you with great admiration. She says you see what others refuse to. I suggest you continue doing so." And then he was gone. Wayne stood in the quiet that followed, unsure whether he had just been praised, warned, or both. When he returned to his salon, the line had already formed. Valenians, Valari, even a few HRRchi, their scent glands flickering nervously in the cool air. Word had spread faster than gossip, faster than politics. They weren't there for haircuts. They were there for something deeper. Trust. By noon, every appointment slot was full for the next month. Later that afternoon, as he cleaned his tools again, a soft chime signaled a private message. The sender tag read, Diana Krelvoth. The message was short. Thank you, Mr. Wayne. My father is proud of me again. I told him why. I think he's beginning to understand what being human really means. Wayne smiled faintly, setting his scissors back on their stand. The galaxy, for all its sophistication, still struggled to see what humans brought to the table. They didn't have the oldest wisdom or the most advanced technology. But what they had, their empathy, their stubborn refusal to give up, was something the universe desperately needed. He looked around his little salon, this fragile bubble of connection amid the endless machinery of diplomacy. Here, the powerful and the powerless sat in the same chair. Here, pain and pride were equal. The door chimed again. Another client. Another story. Another chance to prove that sometimes, the smallest act of care can shift the gravity of an entire galaxy. And as Wayne picked up his scissors, he thought of something his old commanding officer used to say. Saving one life doesn't change the universe, but it changes one universe entirely. Wayne smiled. Guess that's enough for today. Weeks passed, and Wayne's little salon became something more than a business. It became a crossroads, the kind of place where species that had never shared more than a handshake began to talk, laugh, and trust. Word of mouth, especially among the Council's diplomatic staff, moved faster than any official broadcast. The Zoth came first, curious and clicking, their chitinous plates reflecting the lights as Wayne polished them with practiced care. Then came the Thalorans, 2 of them at once, debating art while Wayne trimmed their sensory plumes. Even the HRR Kai, who communicated mostly through scent, began visiting for what they called aromatic alignment. They said his human nose was chaotically perceptive. Wayne took it as a compliment. Every day, the line outside his door grew. Every day, someone new learned that the human way, direct, emotional, patient, could heal in ways technology never could. The Council's officials noticed, too. They began referring to Wayne's salon as neutral ground. A micro-embassy, someone joked. The name stuck. It wasn't just the work. It was the atmosphere. Wayne never asked titles, never cared about status. He treated everyone the same, with humor, humility, and that quiet determination that defined his species. For the first time in the embassy's long and tangled history, aliens and humans began to see each other not as representatives, but as people. Then one afternoon, Diana returned. Her tendrils shone brighter than ever, pulsing with vibrant waves of light. She moved with confidence now, no trace of pain or hesitation. Wayne smiled when he saw her. Back for a touch-up? He said. She laughed. Not exactly. I came to thank you properly. You already did. Not like this, she said, her tone serious now. You changed more than my life, Wayne. You changed my father's. He's been speaking about you at council meetings. About the human perspective. The way you see things others overlook. Wayne raised an eyebrow. I didn't realize haircuts counted as diplomacy. They do when they teach the galaxy something about compassion, she said. My father says you embarrassed half the medical board. And now they're asking questions they should have asked centuries ago. Wayne chuckled softly. If it helps people suffer less, I'll take it. Diana hesitated, her gaze softening. He wants to meet you again. Not as an ambassador. As a father. Wayne nodded slowly. I'd be honored. That evening, the meeting was quiet and informal. No attendance, no protocols. Just Wayne, the ambassador, and Diana sitting in the warm light of the salon. The atmosphere was almost peaceful. Krelvoth studied the framed mirrors, the rows of tools, the faint hum of sterilizers. You've built something rare here, he said. A place where truth feels safe. It's just a salon, Wayne said. The ambassador shook his head. No. It's proof that humanity belongs among us. Wayne met his gaze. You really believe that? I do now, Krelvoth said. Because I've seen what your kind can do when you care. You find solutions others dismiss. You refuse to let pain be inevitable. That stubbornness, it's your gift. He reached into a satchel and placed a small crystalline disc on the counter. This is an invitation. The Galactic Health and Cultural Exchange Committee wishes to hear your methods. They call it adaptive empathy. They believe it can change how we train our physicians. Wayne stared at the disc. You want me to teach aliens how to care? Krelvoth smiled faintly. Exactly. For a long moment, Wayne said nothing. He looked around his little shop, the mirrors, the chairs, the soft reflection of starlight on metal scissors. It seemed absurd that a man who once patched up soldiers in muddy trenches might now be asked to teach the galaxy about healing. And yet, somehow, it made sense. He picked up the disc, turning it over in his fingers. I don't know if I'm qualified. You're human, Krelvoth said. That's qualification enough. When the ambassador and his daughter left, Wayne stood for a while in silence. Outside, the stars glittered above the embassy sprawl. Somewhere out there, civilizations thousands of years old were debating trade routes and treaties. But here, in one small room, something far greater was happening. Connection. That night, Wayne placed Diana's old-growth ring in a small glass case on the shelf above his workstation. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A symbol of what one act of care could mean across the stars. He whispered to himself, "Never thought I'd end up teaching aliens how to feel." The next day, he opened the salon as usual. Another line of clients, another wave of stories waiting to unfold. But this time, something had changed inside him. He realized that maybe this was humanity's role in the cosmos. Not conquerors, not inventors, not even diplomats. Healers. He cleaned his scissors, smiling faintly. Guess the galaxy's about to get a haircut. And somewhere, far beyond Earth's orbit, a message was already spreading through the networks of the Galactic Council. A new initiative. A new philosophy. Born not from power or technology, but from a single human's refusal to ignore another's pain. Months later, Wayne found himself standing in a place he never imagined. A chamber deep within the Galactic Council's core spire. It was a space few humans had ever seen. The ceiling shimmered like liquid glass, constellations of data and lights swirling in endless motion. Around him sat delegates from 50 civilizations, each older, wiser, and infinitely more advanced than humanity. He still wore his stylish jacket. It had become something of a symbol now, a mark of humility and defiance. When the council had invited him to speak about cross-species care, they expected a scientist, a physician, a scholar. Instead, they got a hairdresser with calloused hands and a quiet voice that carried more conviction than protocol. The chairperson of the committee, an ancient being named Laveri, addressed him in a tone both curious and cautious. Mr. Wayne of Earth, you were requested to explain the methodology behind your so-called human empathy. We have reviewed your case with the Valenian ambassador. The council finds your actions unconventional, yet effective. We seek to understand. Wayne took a deep breath and looked around the vast chamber. With respect, there's not much to explain. I just listened. I paid attention. I didn't assume the answer was complicated just because the pain was. Several delegates exchanged puzzled looks. The Zoth representative clicked his mandibles. You claim you succeeded where centuries of medicine failed because you listened? Wayne nodded. Yes, because pain isn't just a signal, it's a message. Every living being has a story behind that message. You can't fix it unless you care enough to hear it. A ripple moved through the room. Murmurs in hundreds of tongues. Some skeptical, some intrigued. The Martian-born linguist, representing humanity's small but growing contingent, smiled faintly. He's not wrong, she said. Humans survived their own wars by learning to heal each other when machines couldn't. Laveri tilted her crystalline head. And you believe this trait is what humanity contributes to the galactic whole? Wayne smiled. It's what we've always contributed. You all have knowledge beyond anything we can imagine. Technology that bends physics, medicine that regrows stars. But when something simple breaks, when someone suffers quietly, you look past it. We don't. We can't. It's not in our nature to ignore pain, even when it isn't ours. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then, surprisingly, Krelvoth himself stood from his seat among the Valenian delegation. His voice carried through the chamber like thunder made of silk. I once considered humans reckless, emotional, dangerous. Now, I consider them necessary. My daughter lives because this man saw what no one else did. Compassion is not primitive, it is revolutionary. That statement hit harder than any speech Wayne could have prepared. The murmurs shifted. Now, there was respect, curiosity, even awe. Laveri raised a delicate hand. Perhaps there is merit in your human perspective. The Council's Health Committee proposes an initiative, a shared learning exchange on empathy-driven diagnostics. Would you, Wayne of Earth, be willing to lead it? Wayne blinked, caught off guard. Me? I'm just a hairdresser. Krelvoth smiled from across the chamber. No, Mr. Wayne. You are a healer. He hesitated only for a moment, then nodded. All right, but I'm not teaching techniques. I'm teaching perspective. The kind that starts with one question. Are you all right? The chamber filled with low, contemplative sounds, approval in a dozen alien forms. The motion passed unanimously. Later, as Wayne left the spire, he stopped at the viewing deck overlooking the earth below, blue and fragile, floating in the darkness. He thought about the wars he'd survived, the soldiers he'd patched up with trembling hands, the refugees who'd trusted him because he simply refused to give up. And he thought about Diana, the young woman whose pain had sparked all of this. Maybe that was how change began, not with grand speeches or revolutions, but with one act of care that rippled outward until the whole universe felt it. He returned to his salon that night. The line was shorter now, but the air was different. Visitors from across the galaxy stopped by not just for grooming, but for conversation. They came to feel something human. A Zoth engineer once told him, "You cut more than hair, Wayne. You cut away fear." He laughed. Guess that's part of the service. As the embassy lights dimmed for the evening, Wayne sat in his chair and watched the stars through the glass. Somewhere out there, entire worlds were beginning to reconsider what it meant to heal. And it had started here, in a room no bigger than a closet, with a pair of scissors and a stubborn belief that no one deserved to suffer alone. He whispered to himself, not bad for a guy from Earth. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like maybe humanity was exactly where it belonged, among the stars, not as conquerors or scientists, but as caretakers of the fragile, brilliant light that connected them all. It was nearly a year later when the message arrived. Wayne had just finished trimming the sensory fronds of a Thalaran ambassador when the courier drone glided into the salon and projected a holographic seal above the counter. The Galactic Council insignia spun slowly in the air, glowing gold against the salon's warm light. He wiped his hands and opened the message. To Mr. Wayne of Earth, it began. By unanimous decision of the Council, you are hereby appointed as Chief Consultant for the Intergalactic Compassion Initiative. Your work in adaptive empathy has inspired cross-species reform in over 40 civilizations. You are requested to attend the inauguration ceremony at the core spire. He stood there for a long moment, the words sinking in. A human hairdresser from Earth, asked to help shape the moral philosophy of the galaxy. He laughed softly. Guess the galaxy really did need a haircut. When he arrived at the core spire again, the atmosphere was different. There was no tension now, no skepticism. Instead, there was anticipation, something warm, hopeful. The chamber was filled with delegates, physicians, and engineers. And among them sat people he now recognized. Diana, smiling proudly beside her father, the Martian linguist. Laveri, the crystal-bodied elder who had once doubted him. This time, Wayne didn't wear the council's formal attire. He came in his stylish jacket again, just as before. He wanted them to see that he hadn't changed, that empathy didn't require authority to matter. Laveri rose and addressed the gathering. Today marks the beginning of the Intergalactic Compassion Initiative, an effort to unite biology, psychology, and empathy under one universal understanding of care. This initiative was not born from a laboratory, but from a salon, from one human's refusal to accept another's pain as unsolvable. She gestured toward him. Mr. Wayne, the council yields the floor. He stepped forward. The vast chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes, lenses, and sensors fixed on him. Thank you, Wayne said quietly. I don't have a speech prepared. I've never been good at those. I just have a story. He paused, looking around the room. A girl walked into my shop one night. She was in pain, constant, unbearable pain. Her people had the best medicine in the galaxy. They scanned her brain, adjusted her resonance, changed her diet, her air, her light. But no one looked at the simplest thing, the roots of what was hurting her. I did. Not because I'm smarter, but because I couldn't stand to see her suffer. He took a breath. That's what being human means. We don't stop. Even when the universe tells us there's nothing we can do, we try anyway. Because maybe, just maybe, we'll find the one thing everyone else missed. He looked up at the sea of alien faces. You call it empathy. I call it care. And it's not uniquely human. It's just been forgotten. So let's remember together. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber erupted in applause. It wasn't loud. Different species had different ways of expressing approval, but it filled the air like a living wave. Afterward, delegates from every corner of the galaxy came forward to thank him. A Zoth engineer promised to develop new tools for non-invasive neural mapping inspired by his discovery. A Thalaran artist offered to paint the story of the human healer on the walls of their academy. And the Valenians, led by Ambassador Krelvoth himself, announced a new medical center dedicated to cross-species understanding. They called it the Wayne Institute. Diana approached him last. Her tendrils shimmered softly, reflecting the colors of the room. "You did it," she said. Wayne shook his head. "No, we did it. You were brave enough to ask for help. That's where it started." She smiled. "Still, I think you've changed more than anyone expected." He chuckled. "I just cut hair." "No," she said quietly. "You reminded the galaxy that kindness isn't a weakness." That night, back in his salon, Wayne closed up shop and sat by the window. The embassy beyond was alive with light and motion, a symphony of languages and life. On his shelf, the small glass case glimmered faintly. Inside it, Diana's old-growth ring caught the starlight, scattering it into tiny rainbows across the wall. He thought about the journey, the war he had survived, the strangers he had helped, the moment he'd looked at an alien girl and seen a patient instead of a problem. It all led here. He whispered to himself. Maybe this is what we're meant to do out there. Not to conquer, not to lead, just to care. Outside, a shuttle streaked across the night sky, its thrusters glowing like a trail of fireflies. Wayne watched it fade into the distance and smiled. Because somewhere in that endless sea of stars, someone was suffering. And now, maybe, there was someone ready to look closer. That was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not power, not intelligence, but the unshakable belief that every problem has a solution, if you care enough to find it. He turned off the lights, leaving only the soft glow from the glass case behind him. The colors danced on the walls, alive and gentle, a reminder of what one act of compassion could spark across the stars. And as he stepped into the quiet corridor, he said softly, "Every life matters. Every pain can heal. You just have to care enough to try." Then he smiled, because in the end, that was all it ever took. Across the stars, civilizations rose and fell on logic, technology, and strength. But sometimes, it takes one human with a steady hand and an open heart to remind the universe what truly matters. Wayne never sought fame. He just wanted to ease one person's pain. But that single act of care became a spark that spread from world to world. A reminder that empathy is the greatest power in the galaxy. So the next time someone tells you a small kindness doesn't matter, remember the human hairdresser who changed the stars with a pair of scissors. And the belief that no pain is ever too small to heal. Because that's what it means to be human.